So let's go ahead and get started, just beginning with a settling in meditation. Taking a couple of deep breaths and bringing our attention inward. And gently closing the eyes or softening your gaze. Taking those few deep breaths, just allowing the body to relax as you exhale. Just letting go of any stress or tension that you're in your body from the day. Maybe doing a body scan from the top of your head, slowly downward. Just relaxing your face muscles, loosening your jaw, letting your neck and throat relax. Dropping the shoulders. Letting the arms hang heavy at your side or on your lap. Feeling your body relax as the tension kind of melts off with every exhale. Feeling supported in your seat. Letting your legs be relaxed and heavy. And your feet on the ground. Or if you're on the cushion, just feeling yourself being grounded, supported, relaxing, heavy, sinking into your cushion just a bit more. And paying attention to your breath on the next in-breath, just following it completely from the tip of your nose, through your nostrils, your throat, your lungs, and the contraction of your body as you exhale. And feeling the temperature difference of the warm exhale compared to the cool inhale. And we'll just follow the breath for a few moments and that natural breathing rhythm. And if it helps to relax by taking another couple of deep intentional breaths, you can go ahead and do that. Just allowing yourself to relax a little bit more, seeing if there's any tension you can let go of. And as the thoughts come into your mind, Just bring your attention back to your body and your breath, letting the thought just float away for now, and just staying here in this moment with this group. If there's any tension in your body, just taking that extra deep breath, exhaling and relaxing that area of your body, letting yourself feel very heavy, very relaxed. Following the breath in and following the breath out, just breathing naturally, allowing that natural rhythm to kind of lull you into a feeling of serenity and comfort, contentment. And again, just checking your posture. You want to sit up straight but not rigid, relaxing your shoulders and letting the thoughts go by. We don't need to get caught in the thoughts, in their stories. Just following the rhythm of our breath as we breathe naturally. And when you're ready, fluttering the eyes open, gently coming back to the group. So welcome everyone. It's good to see you here. We're not quite so hot this week. We have a little bit of a reprieve, which is nice. So Walt Opie was here a couple of weeks ago and he led a really nice talk and meditation for us on the Four Noble Truths. And last week I kind of continued on with that with the Eightfold Path, which is the fourth Noble Truth. So the first Noble Truth being that there is suffering. It's part of our human experience. Second is there's a cause of suffering. We can usually pinpoint what it is. And the third is there's hope, a way out of suffering, a way out of that habitual thinking. And that is the fourth Noble Truth, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path is broken up into three wisdom paths. There's the actual beginning one, wisdom path, which is right view and right thought or right intention. Then there's the second path, which is ethical conduct, which is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And then there is the mental discipline, which is the third one, of right mindfulness and right concentration. So last week we talked a little bit about the first one in the wisdom path, right view. Some lineages call that wise view or wise understanding, which is really nice because I think that's an apt term. We become a little wiser as we get more knowledge, right? Hopefully, hopefully we get wiser. And with that right view, just to sum it up quickly, was what right view means or wise view means is to see clearly, to see the truth of underneath all of the stuff that we hear and see and think, what's the truth? What's the clarity in it without all that muddled mud? So that's what we strive for. We want to see what's really true and the difference of what our mind is making up, because that's what it does. And then the truth of life, what's really happening. So we want to develop a way to get out of the habit loops that don't benefit us. We don't have a benefit in negative thinking, right? So if we move on to the second step of wise or right thought, or I guess it would be right intention, depending on the teacher. But in the Pali Canon, it does translate into several things. The thing about the Eightfold Path is it's set up in a way that it's not really important that you do these steps in the exact order, but there is a reason for it. The reason is that they kind of build on each other. So tonight we'll talk about right thought and put into practice what the Buddha had to say about the role of right thought and renunciation. All the elements that make up the first step of the Eightfold Path, which is right view, that leads to that cultivation of right thoughts and right intentions. And that can result in our general happiness, that ultimate freedom that we're all kind of seeking. We're all kind of looking for that way out of the suffering. So right view is a really important part of it. It really is the beginning of that cultivation of how we're changing our mind, how we're changing our thought process. In Pali, it's sama samakappa, and that translates into right thought or right intention or right resolve or right aspiration. So there's a lot of really being aware of how we're thinking what is the benefit to these thoughts? And the importance of that step is to understand that power that habit has over us and our lives. We can create some great habits that add great things to our lives, but often we get caught in a loop of negative thinking or negative habits, and that's not beneficial. So freedom from that attachment can be linked directly to right thought and the power of renunciation in doing so. And when the Buddha talked about renunciation, in more general terms, he was talking more about the experience of non-addiction. So we become addicted not only to trying to gratify our wants and desires, but we also get addicted to the mental habit of wanting itself. We want, and then we want, and then we desire. And a lot of that is normal human nature. We want food, obviously. We want to drink something when we're thirsty. So it's normal for us to desire things and to have wants. But when it goes into an unhealthy, unwholesome loop of craving, then it starts to cause problems with us. So what the Buddha referred to renunciation as the cleansing of the mind and heart. So you're kind of using the right view of seeing clearly what's the truth of things. And then what's the intention behind it? Cleansing of the mind and heart, getting to the truth of how we're thinking, what's our intention. And we can cultivate in ourselves an increasingly clear discernment, I think is a great way of putting it. Increasingly clear discernment of the kinds of thoughts that are arising in our minds. So we see the thought, we discern whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, or cyclical or not, a habit or not, and then make the conscious decision to move into or toward a healthy thought. So we really want to put it through that filter. We want to look at how we're thinking and why we're thinking that. Where does that come from? So by simply checking our thoughts and putting them through this filter of wholesome or helpful thinking, we're retraining our mind to automatically go into that process of wise thought, wise intention. And that creates that healthy intention that we want to develop behind our thoughts. And I think Joseph Goldstein put it really well. He said, when we understand that karma is based on volition, we can see the enormous responsibility we have to become conscious of the intentions that precede our actions. As we know, we have an action or a thought, and then we have a reaction or a result. And that's what karma is. A lot of times people will say that karma catches up with you in your next life. And that's not really what the Buddha taught. It's just something that we say might cause pain, and we're not happy with ourselves for causing the pain. So we feel pain. So there is that karmic response, the result of our thoughts and actions. And when we get a handle on that, when we really start doing some positive thinking and positive intention, the result creates that happiness and that stepping away from suffering. Willie Nelson said, once you replace negative thoughts with positive ones, you'll start having positive results. And I think that's pretty straightforward. Once we do have positive thoughts, we really do have positive results. And if it isn't positive as a result, because we've been practicing this, it doesn't affect us in a negative way so deeply. We're more able to step back a little bit and go through the discernment process of how am I going to accept this? How am I going to see this clearly? How am I going to change this into something positive? or just accept that it's not and move forward without getting caught up in a story about it. So, in the case of healthy or unhealthy or unwholesome thoughts, they can become a habit and they bring this unhappiness. And after a while, we don't even know that we're complaining. We don't even know that we're caught in fear. We don't know that we're caught in our desires to maybe drink too much wine to feel better or eat sugar and chocolate or whatever it is. Rather than deal with the problem, sometimes we try to avoid it by doing these other things that give us temporary pleasure. And it can create a really negative habit loop because it's not healthy for our body and it's not healthy for our mind to avoid things either. When things are difficult, it's hard not to avoid them, but we can take them in little increments. We can kind of just sit with the feeling, kind of figure out what the feeling really is, if it's sadness, if it's anger, whatever it is, and just look at it and say, yeah, okay, right now I'm feeling sad or angry or rejected or whatever it is. And see how that feels in your body. And if you're feeling it in your stomach or in your chest or your shoulders are up, just breathing into those areas and relaxing them and allowing yourself to just kind of let go of that. And you'll be surprised how it begins to dissipate. It may not all go away altogether, but it does dissipate a little bit. And then we want to see how we can add some positive thought and positive intention to what we're thinking or doing. So we catch the thoughts and we try to stay on top of our busy mind. And we develop that habit of looking at our thoughts before we allow them to become a habitual thinking. And one of the things that Socrates suggested was to put it through the three filters. Is it true? Whatever it is that you're hearing or experiencing, is it true? Is it beneficial? And is it necessary? If it's not true, then we can just let that go, right? If it's not beneficial, then we don't really need to hang on to it. We don't need to circle that in our mind. And if it's not necessary, again, we can just let that go. And then there's the other acronym of think. The T is for, is it true? Very similar. Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Because if it's not any of those things, we really don't need to get involved with the conversation that we're having in our head. You know, I think it's an important part of insight meditation to really explore what we see and what we feel. Um, when we really look at what's real and true and clearly see how we want to approach something in a positive way, there's a lot of insight we gain from that because it's a practice. It's a practice we don't normally get ourselves involved with. It's so easy to fall back and just kind of complain about things. But when we make that effort to really get involved with what's really happening here, how am I feeling about this? What am I going to do about it in a positive way? What's the wholesome next step to take that will benefit me and others? Because the benefit for ourselves is also the karma, right? So if we're going to create some kind of happiness for ourselves, that's going to show, it's going to show to other people. They're going to see that. It kind of rubs off. So that's another piece of karma that is created by our practice. Right thought or right intention is really a powerful part of our wisdom path. We want to develop that clear thinking, right view, and then that right intention, right thought. And once we see clearly with right view or right understanding, we can really discern which thoughts we want to go along with and which thoughts we really want to change or let go of. And it's that simple after a while. And it does take practice. like anything else, which we need effort involved with that, right? If we want to make it a good practice. One last quote from Marcus Aurelius. He said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature." So you want to make sure that your thoughts are going in the positive direction of things. And when they're not, don't beat yourself up because it's a habit that you got stuck in. Just recognize it. Oh, there I go again in my negative mind or my fear-based mind, whatever it is. Just say, okay, there it is. How can I sit with this? How can I look at this and kind of just be aware of it? If you're not ready to really put the effort in to make the changes, I think the first step would be teaching ourselves to become aware of when those thoughts come up. So in the next meditation, I'd really like to ask you to look at the kind of thoughts that do come into your mind. As part of meditation is sitting with our busy mind and being okay with it anyway. But as the thoughts do come in, just look and see what kind of a thought it is. And you don't need to get caught in the whole story of it. You can just notice, oh, that's a fear thought, or oh, that's a planning thought, or oh yeah, I'm making a laundry list for things to do. Whatever it is, just notice it and then come back to your breath and practice letting it go. And before you know it, another thought will come in and we'll do it all over again. The practice of this and the intention behind it is to teach our mind that thinking is okay and letting go of negative thoughts is even better. So it's a practice to identify the negative thoughts, let them go, identify the positive thoughts, and smile to yourself. Ah, I'm in a happy moment. I'm having positive thoughts. And we can go ahead and proceed. And let's do that. Let's pay attention to those thoughts that come into our mind. Just notice what they are. Come back to the breath. Let the thought go. Start over. So getting comfortable, sitting up straight. Taking a few deep breaths just to help ourselves settle in. As you exhale, letting go of any tension in the body. Let yourself feel supported and safe. Notice how you're holding your body. Are there some adjustments that you can make that may make it a little more comfortable? And then just stay with the rhythm of the breath. Noticing how the breath expands our lungs and our belly. How our body contracts as we breathe out. Get that natural rhythm or a natural breath. Like the ebb and flow on a shoreline, we breathe in and out with this rhythm. And notice what kind of thoughts do drift into your mind. And then just noting it, naming it, coming back to the breath. We don't need to have any judgment about it or criticism. And just naming it and coming back to the breath. So as we're going through our days, we can bring this with us. Noticing when we are afraid or angry or frustrated. And then pausing and being with that feeling, that thought. What's the intention behind it? Is it beneficial? And if it's not, we learn to let it go. We don't want to get caught up in that. And we take a few deep breaths and come back to our center. So we want to practice creating this new way of thinking. And as the Buddha said, wherever we have the inclination of our mind, wherever our thoughts tend to dwell, that's what we become. So we're going to look at our thoughts, look at the intention behind them. And we can practice this, creating our own life of happiness by not getting caught in those negative stories. And there's a difference between ignoring a thought and looking deeply at the thought. And we don't want to ignore something. We want to understand it. and then let it go. Often there's a reason for anger or disappointment. And acknowledging that is important. So when we get caught in the cycle of telling ourselves the story over and over, that's when it becomes unhealthy, unwholesome, non-beneficial. So we look at what we think, we look at what we feel, we see the truth of it clearly, and then let that go. Come back to our breath and our life and move forward. And Robert Schuller says, it takes but one positive thought, when given a chance to survive and thrive, to overpower an entire army of negative thoughts. It takes but one positive thought to overpower an entire army of negative thoughts. and check in and see where your mind is. Have you drifted off into thought? And if so, just naming the thought and coming back to the breath. We can notice how often we have a judging mind. Often we find ourselves caught in thought and we criticize or judge ourselves for it. Well, we don't need to. We can just notice that we drifted off and now we come back to the breath. So when you're ready, gently fluttering your eyes open, coming back to the group. All right, guys. Well, have a wonderful week and practice, recognizing the thoughts that come in, labeling them like Feather suggested, and just notice, is that a positive thought? Is that a negative one? And if so, how can I turn that around? Or can I let that go? So we'll just look at the truth of things, find out what we can see clearly. So look at our intentions behind our words and actions and make our lives a little happier. All right. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I love seeing your faces every week. So take good care. I love you all. Have a great week.